Good Friday, everyone, and welcome into today's daily Bible reading for Friday. Today is October the 7th, and we are reading together in Job chapter 2. The book of Job and chapter 2 is up for today. Let's go ahead and get that text up on the screen and remind us of what we looked at yesterday as we introduced this particular writing of the Old Testament, that we often look at it as a text that primarily teaches us how to handle suffering. And while that certainly is something that is taught, my suggestion is that it is more so a look at how does God operate in this world? Does he operate according to strict rules of justice, meaning that a good person always gets good things and a bad person is going to get bad things? Or are things a little more complicated than that? I didn't stress it enough, so I'm going to do it now. Job is a man who's described as complete in integrity. He was a man of complete integrity. This is chapter 1, verse number 1, who feared God and turned away from evil. And that is seen in how he not only himself is described in his relationship toward God and his approach to God, but even the way that he views his children's relationship with God, that he would offer sacrifices on their behalf on the off chance that they might have cursed God in their hearts. And as the Lord is gathered together in his heavenly dwelling place, and as the sons of God, the spiritual beings of his council, are there with him, and the Satan, the accuser, the adversary, as he comes before the Lord and the Lord begins to converse with him, he specifically highlights Job. Have you considered my servant Job? Verse number 8 of chapter 1. No one else on the earth is like him, a man of perfect integrity who fears God and turns away from evil. So there is very much so an inescapable reality that Job here is pictured as a just man. And if God does work on the grounds of good people get good things and bad people get bad things, then we would not think that what is happening to Job would be happening. But I believe that's starting to build then the way that we ought to read into this text. Of course, the Satan in this first chapter goes through and challenges God and says, "Oh, well, he only serves you because you take care of him. If you take it away, he'll curse you to your face." The Lord accepts that challenge. There is an ego battle going on here. Again, I don't mean that in a negative way whatsoever from God's perspective. He is God. He is who he is, and he has a right to defend his honor. And he does that here. He says, that's fine. You can touch touch him, touch what he has. Don't touch him as a person, though. And we'll see how these things go. Job loses everything. He loses so many possessions, his children, and he is crushed, yet he is not defeated. The Lord gives and the Lord takes away. Blessed be the name of the Lord, are his final words. And throughout all of this, chapter 1 and verse number 2, Job did not sin or blame God for anything. So now we come to chapter 2 and we consider the next step in this story. And it's very similar to what we see back in chapter 1, beginning in verse number 6. Now, one day the sons of God, this is Job 2, verse 1. One day the sons of God, his heavenly council, came together to present themselves before the Lord. And Satan also came with them to present himself before the Lord. The Lord asked Satan, "Where have you come from?" "From roaming through the earth," Satan answered him, "and walking around on it." Then the Lord said to Satan, "Have you considered my servant Job? No one else on earth is like him, a man of perfect integrity who fears God and turns away from evil." That's exactly what he said in chapter 1. But now he adds on, considering what Job has gone through, he still retains his integrity, even though you incited me against him to destroy him for no good reason. "Skin for skin," Satan answered the Lord. "A man will give up everything he owns in exchange for his life. But stretch out your hand and strike his flesh and bones, and he will surely curse you to your face." "Very well," the Lord said to Satan, the adversary, the accuser, "he is in your power. Only spare his life." So Satan left the Lord's presence and afflicted Job with terrible boils from the soles of his feet to the top of his head. Then Job took a piece of broken pottery to scrape himself while he sat among the ashes. His wife said to him, "Are you still holding on to your integrity? Curse God and die." "You speak as a foolish woman speaks," he told her. Should we accept only good from God and not adversity?" Throughout all this, Job did not sin in what he said. Now, when Job's three friends, Eliphaz the Temanite, Bildad the Shuhite, and Zophar the Naamathites heard about all this adversity that had happened to him. Each of them came from his home. They met together to go and sympathize with him and comfort him. And when they looked from a distance, they could barely recognize him. They wept aloud, and each man tore his robe and threw dust into the air and on his head. Then they sat on the ground with him 7 days and nights, but no one spoke a word to him because they saw that his suffering was very intense. And that concludes Job chapter 2. Again, as we continue unfolding the story, we see that now the Lord is even more resolved in his vouching for Job. Look at Job. Not only is he who I said he was, but now he has proven that to you. And the Satan, again, the enemy, the adversary, the accuser, he says, well, that's because you didn't mess with him. You take anything outside of a man, but if you touch what is really on the man and what really belongs to him, his own body, well, then he'll curse you to your face. Again, the Lord, in showing his who he is and what he does, and his perfect knowledge of those who serve him, he says, okay, do as you wish, just don't kill him. Job is touched with horrible boils. I just cannot imagine the agony that he is in. Not only the mental agony of still processing and grieving what he has lost in his children, although we're not given a real good time frame here. I'm going to assume, and then we know what happens whenever you assume, it's not always the best thing, but I'm going to work on the idea that this is all in some sort of quick succession. Now he's grieving mentally over the loss of his children, and now he is hurting physically for what his body is enduring. And his wife sees this, and his wife says, are you still holding on to your integrity? Curse God and die. Are you still holding on to Job? We have to really put our minds in their mindset, the mindset of these individuals, and it's going to be borne out in what we're going to see here as we move on throughout the text, especially as we talk about these discussions that take place between Eliphaz and Bildad and Zophar. We're going to see the mindset of people at this time who thought that, yeah, hey, listen, the way God rules this world is very, very strict. It is by the rule of justice. If you're just, you do what is right, good things happen. If you're unjust, do what is wrong, bad things happen. So his wife is sitting here thinking, you think that God operates in this way, and yet it's obvious that that's not true. She knows who her husband is. Well, she's saying, what use is it to hold on to your integrity? What use is it to live this way if it's still going to result in you suffering? Curse God and die. Do exactly. She's suggesting him do exactly what the accuser has said he will do. Although I suppose we should maybe give some grace to Mrs. Job here, considering that everything that he has lost, she has as well, apart from what has stricken his body. But Job says, he rebukes her, you are speaking as a foolish woman speaks. Should we accept good from God and not adversity? And again, through all this, Job did not sin in what he had said. Job understands that we are at God's mercy. Again, very similar statement to what we see in chapter 1. The Lord gives, the Lord takes away. Should we accept only good from God and not adversity? What an incredible mindset that Job has here in the face of struggle. And again, that's something that we definitely take away here in these first 2 chapters, especially. We definitely take away how to handle adversity, the proper mindset to have. But it's going to get into something even deeper than that, looking at how exactly is God operating here. And there's going to be a great deal of banter over the next numerous chapters. Let's see, looking at about chapters 3 through 28, at least, and going all the way through 37. So chapters 3 through 37 all look at this argument and this discussion between Job and his 3 friends over how does God operate in this world? How has he designed this world to work? Not only the 3 friends, but also Elihu is another one who is introduced here, is going to speak up as well. And they're going to banter back and forth, and they're going to work under this big assumption that human action comes with an equal opposite reaction from God. They're going to talk about that. Job has his thoughts. The friends have theirs, and they're going to wrestle with that together. So we're going to think about that as we go throughout the next many chapters over the next month or so. But again, just consider up to this point the integrity of Job, the way God views him, and the assumption of the accuser, the Satan, that all he just serves you because you've been good to him. What about us in that regard? Have we ever thought about that? Do we serve God only because he's been good to us? Have there been times in our lives when things have not been so good, and have we been tempted to forsake God and to curse him? If that has been a reality for us, then maybe we need to really investigate how we view God. Do we view him as only a good gift giver who never allows for anything bad to happen? Is that the world that we live in? Do we live in a world where that God operates in that way? I think the answer is going to be that question is going to be answered for us over the next month or so as we read together. But for us individually, do we recognize that yes, God is good to us, but that he is worthy of praise even in difficult times? Do we recognize that? That's not an easy thing to recognize. That's not an easy thing to speak. That's not an easy thing to reflect in our actions, but may God help us to be people who recognize his goodness in the good times and in the bad times. Because even in the bad times, he is still with us. He desires to strengthen us, to help us to overcome the difficulties that we face. We're going to learn about that a lot, I think, as we go throughout this text in some ways. But really, what we're going to learn about is this world. This world's tough. And even though this world is tough, though, God has blessed us in many ways to be able to respond to it. So we'll think about that as we go throughout this text here in the days coming up. Thanks again for tuning in on this Friday. Hope you have a great rest of your day. Looking forward to reading with you again tomorrow as we get into the text of Job chapter 3. Have a good rest of your day, everyone. Take care, and God bless.